Hello everyone. We will start at 7:15. Meanwhile, we'll wait for people to join. Okay, so let's start. Today's class is going to be about classes and objects mainly. And before we start with classes and objects, we will just look at what is object-oriented programming and why we use it. Okay, so shall we begin? I hope everyone can hear me and see the screen. Give a thumbs up or respond yes if you can hear me and see the screen. Okay. So in today's lecture, first we'll just have a brief overview of what is object-oriented programming and why should we use object-oriented programming. Then we will go to the main part of today's session, which is classes and objects. And under that, we will see syntax of a class, then how to define objects for the class, something called as access specifiers, and constructors and destructors for classes. So starting with object-oriented programming. So normally, when we have to write a program, what do? We first think of some logic for like what we need to do. We will think of a logic on how to do that. And then accordingly, we will write a program based on that logic. And we will write this program directly into our main function, or we will write a function and then call that function directly into the main. So that is something which is called as procedure-oriented programming, which if you have taken CS in school, you must have heard that C is a procedural procedure-oriented programming language or a procedural programming language. And C++ is something called as object-oriented programming language, or which in short we call as OOP. Okay, so in object-oriented programming, we structure our program using classes and objects. Okay, so this is object classes will have their attributes and they will be able to do certain tasks. And why would we want to do all this object-oriented thing when we can directly write the code? So there are some advantages when we do object-oriented programming. Like there is better structure to the code we write. Okay, so we will not directly just write lots of code. Like imagine if there is something like big project we have to do and we need a lot of code for it. We cannot just keep on writing code like how we write directly in the main function. So because it will be too much to read and then once like imagine you write the code the previous day and then you come the next day, it will be hard to read. So what object-oriented programming does is it divides the code among objects, thus making it easier to read and easier to reuse also because we can call this, let's say we need certain code to be repeated multiple times. We can call it directly. We can write it once and call it again and again. Okay, so it's object-oriented programming gives us better structuring, which makes the code easy to read and reuse. So it also helps in hiding the data. Hiding meaning some data will be inaccessible directly from the user point of view. Okay, so you will understand this as we go further. And these are the concepts of object-oriented programming: inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction, and encapsulation. This you will learn in later sessions, but to learn these, you need basics first, and that is classes and objects. So today's session will be about classes and objects. Okay, so you can mark the attendance. I'll give you a minute or two. Uh, can you see the screen now? Not okay. Wait, I think about it. Okay, I'll give you the link later in the session. Is that fine, guys? Yeah. Can you hear me? Yes, you can hear me, right? Is it fine if I share the proper code later in the session? Yes, I know attendance form isn't taking responses. Is it okay if I share? Yes. Okay. So we'll move on with the session, sir. Okay, so class is an object. A class is a user-defined data type. Okay, so normally what data types are there? Int, float, and all. So like that, class is a user-defined data type. It contains its own data members and functions. Okay, so these data members and functions which are there, they are together called as members of the class. Okay, so can you see the syntax of the class? You will understand what exactly I mean by this statement. Okay, and these members of this class can be accessed by creating objects of the class. Okay, so an object is like an instance of the class, whereas a class is like a blueprint for the object. So you will define a class. Inside that class, there will be different data members, functions, and all defined inside the class. So it's kind of like a user-defined data type. You must have seen structs yesterday in the previous session, which are also a type of user-defined data type. So class is somewhat similar to that. And in classes, to access this data, you create an object. Okay? And this object will help you in accessing the data members which are there in the class. So this is how you define a class. So firstly, you will write the keyword class. Okay? Then you will give the name of the class over here. And then inside this class, you will give some data, members, functions, and all whatever you want to put inside the class, you will write here. These are called members of the class. Okay, so as you can see, we can have an int a string s. So here, this is like I've made a user defined uh, data type, which takes in int a and string s. So at the end of the class, when you're closing the bracket, you need to put a semicolon here. Otherwise, that's like the syntax of the class, and otherwise the code will give an error. And this is how you call an object for the class. So first we'll write the class name, which is like the data type, and then you will give a name for the object. So here I've given obj as object of the class first. Okay, so by creating this object, we are calling an instance of this class. So has this object will store an integer a, string s, and this object will have a function called as func, which accepts an integer value. So moving ahead, so members of the class. So this class can have data members and member functions. Okay, so here I put the word public. Why I put this word we will come to later. So first we have two data members, both of type float A and B. Okay, so these are data members of the class, and we have member functions. So I have a function to add A and B over here, and I have a function to multiply A and B over here. And here I'm calling object of the class. So this object, when this object is called, these data members get created for this object, and these functions also get created for this object. And this object is called. So we are taking input of two numbers, and we will put them in object.a and object.b. What this shows is we are calling this data member A of this object. We will use the syntax object.a for doing this. Okay, and even for the functions, this function is returning a plus b. So we are directly outputting it from here. And to call this function, we are using this object. Object dot add. Okay, and similarly for this object dot multiply. So you can see the output for this. Is that fine with everyone? Does anyone have a doubt? Okay, can we move ahead? Okay, guys, can we move ahead? Say yes or give thumbs up. So, data members. What are data members? Variables that hold data associated with each object are called data members. So here we are having this object. These members hold values which are related to the object in them. So they are data members. So data members can be of any type. We can define an array over here. You can have string, int, float, char, bool. You can even like have another class and call that class ka object as a data member over here. Okay, so even you can have like marks as an array. You can have any type of data which you want. You can define in a class. And like every time you have an object, let's say here object one, object two. So each object will have its own data members. If for object one I define A as 2 and for object 2 I define A as 3, then for object 1 A will be 2 and object 2 A will be 3. So data members for different objects will have their own values. Okay. And member functions. Member functions are functions which operate on the data members which are there. Okay, of the same class. So as you can see over here, when I'm calling the data members in the function, I'm directly writing A and B because I know the functions which are data members which I'm going to use are going to be of this object only. So since it's of this object only, I can directly call it. I don't need to write object dot and. But when I'm calling it outside the class, like these data members are in, sorry, member functions are in the class. But when I'm calling outside the class, I need to do it like this so that the computer knows that it's this value of this object is being called here. Okay, so like normal functions only, these member functions have a return type. They can accept arguments over here. They will return the thing which you return, like over here, return, and it returns, and you get the output here. Okay, so there are two ways you can define this you can define these member functions. You can define them either inside the class or outside the class, but you need to declare them within the class. Now, what is the difference between define and declare? Defining is this, you're having your curly bracket and you're writing the code for the function inside. It is definition of the function. Declaration is you're declaring that this function exists, like this one. Okay, here also you're declaring, but you're declaring and defining at the same time, at the same place. Okay, that's why you don't need to put a semicolon since you're defining it here. But when you're declaring, you need to put a semicolon at the end. Here also, when you're making variables, you're declaring them. So you need to put a semicolon at the end. Even the class, you're declaring the class to have these data members functions. That's why there's a semicolon at the end. Okay. But whereas for loops and all, when you write a for loop, you don't put a semicolon at the end of the loop because you're not declaring them. You're writing code inside and you're making that code get executed. So yeah. So when you're either ways, the main point is that the function needs to be declared within the class. Even if you're not defining the function in the class, you need to declare it in the class. so that you know that this function belongs to this class. Is that fine? Repeat again. Which part? This part only. Declaration and definition. Yes, sure. So declaration is that you declare that this function exists. Definition is you write the contents of the function, like what this function does is the definition. This function exists is declaration. Does that make sense? So here you are declaring that this function exists within the class. Here also you are declaring this output name is there in the class, but you're also writing the definition of it with it. Where you're declaring there itself, you're writing the definition. Here you are just declaring and you will write the definition elsewhere. Does that make sense? Did you get it? Okay, yeah. Okay, so we'll move on. I'm so sorry, guys. I got disconnected. I'll share it. Yes. So you can see the screen, right? You can see the screen, right? And you can hear me, right? Yes. Okay, so there are two ways to define member functions. Okay. So member functions can be either defined inside the class, like same as this one over here. It's like how you write your normal functions, like how you would write normally. You have your data type, return type, then you have function name, brackets with arguments if there are any, and then you just put your curly bracket and you write the code inside and you return if you have to return it. So this is defined inside the class. This is like how you normally write the functions. You write the full function inside the class. But what happens is that if this function is really big, like here I have only 2 lines, but let's say I have like 20 lines in this function. I have many functions like this in this class. Then this class will be cluttered with lots of code, and we don't want that to happen. That's why there's a second way to define this, which is defined outside the class. So first you need to declare that this function exists. Okay, so like this you will have multiple functions, you just declare them. And then definition you do outside the class. So this over here the class ends, and outside the class you're writing the definition. So there's syntax for writing the code outside the class. So first return type should be same as this, otherwise it will give error. Then you need to write class name. Okay. Then you need to write something which is called as scope resolution operator. Okay. What this scope resolution operator does is that it tells that this function belongs to this class. Then you can proceed with your code properly. So add marks, function name properly, you need to write exactly. Okay. And then you open your bracket and you define your function as you would regularly. Okay. Is that fine? Any confusion with defining the function outside the class? Give a thumbs up if you are good to go. Okay. So importantly, you need to declare it in the class. Okay. So that you know that the function belongs to this. So then we follow this. Okay. So notice how the members are called by objects. This I already told you that you need to write object, like the name of the object, dot A to call the data member A. Object dot add to call the function add. Okay. So to call these members outside the class, we have to use objects. Okay. And this is how you call them using dot. And this dot is called as direct member access specifier. Okay. Direct member access specifier. So also note that objects can only access public members of this class. So what is this public members? As you may have noticed here, I put this word public over here. And why I put this word public, I will explain now. So access specifiers. Okay, so access specifiers or access modifiers also, they are called, specify to who can access the members of this class. Okay, so it's like putting restrictions on who can access what data, whether this data can be passed to a different class and all. So we have three types in C++: public, private, and protected. So it's not just public. Here we can put public, or we can put private, or we can put protected. So start off with what are public access specifiers. So members under public specifier are available to everyone. So it's like the data is available publicly. So from anywhere of the code, you can access these data members. So inside the code, you can access using directly the name. Outside, you can access using objects. And anywhere in the code, you can access. There's no restriction on where you can access. Okay. So here you can see everything works properly. So can be accessed anywhere, can be accessed from functions of the class itself, and can be inherited by another class. So what is this inherited? So inheritance you will learn in detail in a further class, but just for like a brief explanation, you have a class student here. And imagine I declare a class named senior here, and I inherit these things from, and I do some inheritance from student. Okay, so this inheritance, how to do and all, you will learn in a further class. But what will happen is I will, inside this senior class, I will define some data member int a. Okay, so this class will have access to int a, and when we create object of this senior class, it will have int a as its data member, and it will also have all these as this data member. So that's called inheritance. You pass this data members to another class. Okay, so public members can be inherited by another class. It's fine if you like didn't really get what the inheritance part is, because we are going to do it in a further class. Is that fine? We are going to do it in the coming sessions. So, very fine. You all understood what a public, what the public specifier does, right? Guys? Like, yes, give thumbs up. Okay, moving ahead. So just like this public member specifier, we have private. So members under private specifier are available only to the functions which are inside the class. So these private members cannot be accessed from outside the class, nor can they be inherited by another class. Okay, the private members can be accessed only within the class. So these member functions which are there, only they can access. these private members. Okay, so objects of this class cannot access them directly. If I take an object of this class, then if I do, uh, let's say this name over here, and if I use that direct member access specifier, that dot we use, and I do object dot name, it will give an error because it's a private member. Okay, and by default, members are private. So in previous class, you learned about structures, right? Struct, which was something similar to class. In struct, by default, the members are public. But in classes, by default, the members are private. In C++, there are some languages like Java. In Java, by default, they are public. Okay, but in C++, since we're doing C++, by default, when we don't give any access specifier, like over here, I've not given any access specifier. Here, all these members which are there are private members and they cannot be accessed from outside since I have not put public over here. By default, they are private. Did everyone understand that part? Type yes in the chat. Yes. Okay. So there's a special case actually where these private members can be accessed from outside, and that is from a friend class. You have to declare a class to be a friend class to access this from outside. Okay, and we'll come to this a little later. So, in short, friend class can access any type of members from this class. Okay, so here is an example how to access these private members from outside. So to access these private members from outside, you need to write a public function, and then through that public function, you will access these members. So here we have public function to input the data, get data. Okay, and we'll first here define the data and we'll pass it to this function as arguments. And then here it gets defined into this from inside. You cannot directly do m dot name is equal to Krish. It will give an error. Okay, so similarly display to display this private member. You cannot directly see out. You need an function which will be called by the object, and this function will call this data. Is that fine? That's how you access private data members. Okay. In the same class, can we define some public variables and some private ones? Yes, you can. Does private data does that private data can only be accessed by private functions? Is it? No, no, no. Private data members can be accessed by all functions in the class, which are in that class of that object. Only those. From outside, you cannot access. This can be accessed by private, protected, public, any functions. Is that fine? Okay, let's move ahead. So we have final one, which is protected. So members which are under protected specifier are like private only, cannot be accessed by objects from outside the class. They can be accessed within the class and they can be inherited by another class. Okay, that thing which I told you, student, and then we'll have a class senior, and then this senior will inherit these things from student. So protected members can be inherited like that. Okay. So objects cannot access them directly. Is that fine? They are like private members only. Objects cannot, it cannot be like just accessed from anywhere, but they can be inherited by another. Is there any kind of private function? Yes, you can define private. but you cannot directly access them. That private function also, you will have to write a public function, and in that public function, you have to call that private function to access. Okay, so let's hit with the access specifiers. This is just a table for what all it can do. You can refer this if you want to refer quickly. Okay, so here's a question for you. Here is the Slido QR. You can scan the QR and answer. And if you are not able to scan the QR, you can, or you can go to slido.com. Or Okay, so stop in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The answer is, oh, shit. Why can you hear me? Yes, can you hear me? Or am I disconnected? Just type yes if you can hear me. Yes, okay. Okay, so the answer is that it will give an error. And why it will give an error is because it's under protected. And protected, see this C.calc volume is under protected. We cannot directly call protected members. Like I said here, you can see here also. Accessible externally via class instance. Class instance means an object. Okay? No, it cannot be accessed directly using the direct member access specifier, like how we've done here. You can see dot calc or calc code, sorry. And we cannot directly access for protected members like this. Okay? So the answer is that it will give an error. Any of you have given 9.42 earlier before I said it? So it cannot, it will give an error. Okay? So now the question is, what can we do to make this code not give an error and give us 9.42 instead? Here is one way that we can just take this function outside of this protect and put it in public, and then it will be called. We can do that. But what can we do without like keeping this in protected only? What should we do so that this code runs smooth? can type in the chat. What is the role of the protected one? The protected one is something which can be passed. It can be inherited by another class. Inheritance is something you will learn in further classes properly. Okay, because yeah, and it's like private only. For now, it is like private only. The only difference between private and protected is that protected members can be inherited by another class. Like I have this class cylinder, okay, and I can put another class here. Let's say cone. Cone also has radius and height, right? So I can like these are private, so I cannot inherit them. But cone also has a volume, so I can inherit this. Although the function needs to be divided by 3, I can inherit this. Like the thing is that I can inherit this to another class. Okay. How to do this and all you will learn in a further lecture. But the difference between private and protected is that protected can be inherited by another class while private members cannot be. Is that fine? Yeah. So what can we do so that this code runs smoothly and we'll keep this protected function here. We will not take out calc wall and put it in public. Without doing this, what can we do so that this code runs smoothly? Okay, so I'll show you over here. So you can see this screen, right? Here this code is there. And if I run this code, it gives an error. And it's saying here also that in function int main, this function is protected within its context. So declared protected. So what can we do to make this code work? Like we'll keep this function in protected only, but what can we do to make this code work? Any idea? We define another class inside the class. No. See, don't look at it as the protected inherited part. Just imagine that it's a private function also. Like even if this was in private, this function code calc wall was in private also. Like what will you do? I'll give you 1 minute to answer. Declare one object in public. Object is declared in public. Object is declared outside the class. There's no public, private, anything. Okay. Since I'm not getting many responses, we have to make, no, I told you another way. That's one way. You have to tell another way. I already told that. You can make the function. Good answer. Yes, we can create a get volume function and see. We don't need to create a new function also. In this output volume function only, we will remove this from here. And we will put this over here in a public function. As I told you before, these private and protected members can be accessed via public functions. Okay, so this function is protected. We will call this function into the public function, and this public function we will call into the main part. Is that fine? So now I will run the code. It gave 9.42. Did you understand? Yes, we can create a get volume function and then call this function inside it. We'll have to create this get volume function in public. Is that fine by everyone? Type yes. That's how we can access private functions also. If we define a private function, we cannot access it directly over here. We'll have to make a public function to call that private function and then yes. So let's move on with our slides. So next thing which we have is new topic constructors. Okay. So what are constructors? Constructor is a special member function which gets called automatically when object is created. So it's a member function. Okay, first of all, its main job is to initialize the data members. Okay, so I'll show you over here. The constructor doesn't return anything; it only assigns values. So it won't have a return type, and the name of the constructor should be same as the name of the class. This is important. Okay, this is so that the computer knows that this is a constructor of this class. Okay, so it gets invoked when object is created, and it constructs the values of the object. So it's called constructor. So we'll go in details here. So you have a class called room. This exact the same name you have to put here with like the capitalization and all capital. Okay, you will write the name of the class and you'll put brackets here. This is called as a constructor. What the main job of a constructor is to declare the values of these variables or define the values of these variables initially when the object is created. So when over here this object I have defined room R. When I call room R like this, like when I declare it, that time this function gets called. Okay, constructor function. And it declares like it gives the initial values of everything. And yeah, if you want to give a message when the object gets created, you can give a message when the object gets created. When I've written constructor is called to indicate that when this object is created, this constructor is called. So here it first gives these values 663 and then it will output constructor is called. So here constructor is called when I make this variable. Okay. And then after that I will call this function over here to output the values which are there here. Okay. So a constructor is so it gets invoked when object is created and constructs the values in the object. Okay. So you want to construct something, you want to initialize something, you want to like even write a function over here which does something which is like to be done when object is created, like some construction work when the object is created. It is done using construct. You can call that function also here, like length if, and then I have some, let's say volume function, volume of the room. Then it will, if I call here volume, it will be called when like the variable is made and constructor is called and you call it here, the function. Okay, so it's like initializing the things which are there in the object. Okay, so yeah, if the constructor doesn't return anything, it only assigns values, it only initializes it. So a constructor will not have a return type. Return type is this. Here, void. It's like I'm not returning anything. Here it is void. If I was returning some value, it would be like int or float or double. Okay, is that fine? Did you get what a constructor is? And attendance. Attendance is there at the end of the slides. We'll see it working. Okay, so you all got what is constructor, right? Or do I need to explain again? Type yes if you got it. You can hear me, right? Constructor is like a method. Yes, constructor is a like method. Since method are like method is a name for like the member functions are also called methods. Yes, constructor is a method. Not constructor constructor. So it's a member function only ultimately, but it gets called when the object is made. Is that fine? Can we move on? Okay, so one. Please explain constructors once. Yes, sure. So constructor is a function. It's a member function which is used to initialize data members when object is created. So you see these data members are there. Length, width, height. Initially they won't have any value in it. But constructor is used so that initially they have a value. Okay. So when this object is created, that time itself we are assigning it these values. So it's like initializing the things which are there in the class. Okay. So that's why a constructor is used. And like here I'm first initializing these values and then I'm saying that constructor is called to indicate that constructor is called. So here you can see I called room R. I didn't write any R dot room and I did not write put it here. And directly there is R dot output value. So it gets called automatically when object is created. You don't need to write it separately. Okay, constructor is called. And then here I'm outputting the values after calling the constructor. It gets called automatically. You don't need to call. Okay. So basically it is invoked when the object is created and it gives the initial values to the data members which are there in the object or like any initialization which you want to do. Like you want to like give like do something when the object is created itself, some initial procedures. So that you can do using the constructor. Is that fine? Yes. Okay. We'll move on. So constructor, you can also pass arguments to your constructor. Okay. So here I have directly given the values. I have not passed arguments. Here I'm passing arguments, which are then defining the function. So here I have how to pass these arguments. You have to write a bracket and pass this when you're creating the object there itself. Okay. That itself you will pass this. And then again this is works like a normal function only. You will pass the arguments, it will assign the arguments and you will get the output. And concept function overloading, which I guess you know or you don't know, but this there is this thing called as function overloading, which I'll show you. This can also be done using constructors. Okay. And arguments when you're passing, you have to pass here only. So you all got the arguments part, right? I'll show overloading. And so this one, see. Oh, I have written three functions with the same name. Here they are all constructors. Okay. So overloading is like if I call it without passing any value, it will go to the one which does not have any value. If I call the one, so I'll just run this and show you. Constructor with zero arguments is called this one. If I pass the one which has two arguments, then this one will get called. Yes, because this one also has two arguments. Here two arguments are passing. This one has two arguments. Note that all the names are same. Like they are constructors only. This is called as function overloading. Okay, like this you will learn properly, I think, in a later session, or you must have already learned it properly. So yeah, if I run this constructor with two arguments as well. So this is just to show that function overloading can be done using constructors also. Okay, so if you're not sure whether you're going to pass arguments or want you're whether you're not sure if you're going to pass arguments or not, then also you can like define constructors using overloading. And again, just like member functions, it can be defined inside or outside. It should be declared inside and then defined. Is this fine? Is everybody fine with constructors? Please say yes. We'll move on to the last part. So destructor. So again, like a constructor, destructor is a special member function and it destroys the variables created. I mean, destroys the object created. So here I written hello h. When this object is created, constructor is called. When the function ends, okay, this means when the program ends, automatically the destructor will be called and the object will be destroyed. Like this memory space which is occupied by the object will be released. It is called like destruction. Okay, so destructor will destroy the object at the end of the program. Okay, so it gets invoked automatically when the object is to be destroyed. So when the object is destroyed, this gets called. Okay, it is written with this tilde and then name of the class, and then just like constructor, but with a tilde symbol in front. Okay, kind of like you use this tilde symbol for negation also, right? So kind of like negative of a constructor, kind of like that. Okay, so same name as the class preceded by a tilde symbol. It is not possible to define more than one destructor. So constructors you can have multiple according to how many arguments you want, but destructor will not have any arguments. Like what will you pass when you're going to destroy an object? You won't be passing. So it won't have any argument and it will be called automatically when the function is to be the object is to be destroyed. Okay. And again, neither requires any argument nor returns any value. Just like constructor, it doesn't return any value, but it doesn't have any arguments. Okay. So and you cannot have more than one because you're destroying the object only once. After it doesn't object doesn't there's no point having it. Then destructor releases memory space occupied by the object. In destructor, objects are destroyed in reverse order of creation. So this is important. Like like you must have learned about stacks yesterday, last in, first out, like that only. The last object which is created is the first object to be destroyed. Okay, so first created, last destroyed. If the object is created using new or constructor uses new to create the memory space. So you have learned about this new function and delete function in the delete function in the last class. So you in the last session. So if you are not sure of what that is, you can go and watch the recording of it. So it allocates to heap memory. So here, when you create it using new, it gets destroyed according to how you delete it. So in order of which you use the delete function to delete the object, in that order they will get deleted. That order destructor will be called and they will get deleted. Okay. So before we go to the questions, any doubt? Okay, so same Slido link, which was there earlier. I think I forgot to put it back here. So okay, so first question. Oh, yeah. So do you need the Slido link again, guys? Yeah, yeah. Karthik has typed it in the. Okay, I'll just show the Slido link. There you go. Same Slido link over here. Just go to the Slido link. So here, which of the following members can be accessed by a friend class? I had mentioned this before. So most of you are putting public and private protected is getting less. Why? Okay, so I told you that friend class, like class is there, and you define a friend class for that class that can access private members also. Okay, so it can actually access all types of members, private, protected, public. All members are accessible by a friend class. I'll show you. Okay, so this one, yeah. So here I have defined class 1, which has private A, protected B, and public C. Okay, and over here I have made class 2 friend of this class. Okay, and here we have class 2. Class 2 has public integer D, constructor which defines D to be 4. Here also constructor which defines values. And over here it has this function which outputs this. So here we are calling object of class 1. Over here we are passing it here 1 1 2 2 and 2 dot abc, which is a public function. This one we are passing object 1 and object. Okay, we are taking in the object here and we are outputting the values. And if I run this over here, you see all are accessed. Okay, so friend class can actually access all. The thing is that it can even access private members of the friendship, I guess, something like that. Okay, so similarly, like just to compare, I put class 3 over here. I had to comment all of this because it was giving error initially also. And now if I run this, see, it gives an error. This is private, private, protected, protected. Okay, so friend class can access any. Okay, friend class can access even the private members of the class. Okay, so now we'll move on to the second question. Let me enable it on Slido for you. Yeah, can answer the second question. Objects of a class are created like so. Class, first object created is A, second object created is B, third object created is C. In what order will they be destroyed? Same link Slido. One right answer. Yes. First C will be deleted, then B will be deleted, then A will be deleted. In reverse order. We can see this in code also. So here I have created a class named disorder, like destruction order, and we have int order. And we are using constructor to take in n so that we know in what order it is created. A is created first, B is created second, C is created third. And then we'll see out the order in which they are destroyed. So value of A is 1, B is 2, C is 3. And when we run this, you can see 1 is created, 2 is created, 3 is created, and 3 is first destroyed, then 2 is destroyed, then 1 is destroyed. So it is destroyed in opposite order of what it is created. So first created, last destroyed. Okay. And the third question, you can just type in the chat. An object can have multiple constructors and destructors. You can just type it in the chat. False. True. Okay. False. False. None, guys. False. False. Okay. Getting a lot of falses here. Then that's right. Because, as I told you before, this destructor can be called only once. Even the constructor, it gets called only when the object is created. But constructor, you can call later also. But destructor, since there is an end here, destructor is called only when the object is to be destroyed. And once it's destroyed, there is no more object. So there is, you cannot call it again. Okay, is that fine, guys? Thank you for responding. Okay, so if you have any doubts, you can put it in the chat right now, or you can take your attendance, or and please fill the feedback form. So if you have any doubts regarding today's session, please type it in. The attendance is working, right? Not able to. I think someone, yeah, Karthik shared it. Can you please suggest some resources that you follow for learning C++? Hmm, I think I'll one answer. Like I learned C++ like starting from school actually. We had it as a subject. But yeah, okay, there are many online resources. You can feedback from RA. Okay. Ma'am, are you a student or a teacher? I'm a student at IITM. First year going to second. Please don't call me ma'am. For resources that you follow for learning C++, like do you suggest reading books for yes, you can read books, but it's more important to actually write the programs and okay. So as you are reading, also write the programs, see where you are doing mistakes. Then you can answer contests on code forces and all, which are like on competitive programming. And there is this one site called I think CSS something. Oh, wait, I'll search. CSS. Yes. So there's this site called CSS, which has like very basic programming questions, like common questions for competitive programming actually. Like dev part you have to learn through books and experience and through others. But CSCS, like if you want to improve your logical reasoning, then CSU. Yeah. Feedback form. Is it working now? Okay, fine. Hey guys, since there are no more doubts, I guess please fill the feedback form. Also give your attendance if you haven't yet. And yeah, I guess the end for today's session. I'll wait for 1 minute so that you can scan the QR. And if you don't have any doubts, you can leave. Okay, guys. Bye. Good night. Take care. Ma'am. Yeah. Don't call me ma'am, but what happened? Are you typing or yeah, we are all first year students. If you're coming to IIT Madras, you see us around, come to meet us. And guys are conducting this session for days, right? No. We have question series for placement. Oh, no, damn, for yourself, no. Yeah, anyways, if you're like, you have placement series questions on Instagram, follow us on the Programming Club on Instagram, IIT, Programming Club.it. We put daily question series related to internship placement, what kind of questions they ask. So you can follow us there to get some insights. What is ID? Wait, I'll type it in. You can follow us there. Okay, so I guess we are done for today. Have a great evening or night or whatever, and take care. Signing off. Bye bye.